Hey guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about what it was like to have my gallbladder removed at 16 years old and all the issues that kind of led up to that, complications, etc.
It feels like I'm skydiving when I text you. Rose petals on the floor outside your bedroom. Sunshine whenever you smile.
16 when it finally got removed. It got removed in an emergency situation. I had been having what I would call, and I've heard others refer to as, gallbladder attacks probably for at least 6 to 12 months. And it would literally feel like someone was grabbing my ribs from the inside of my body and squeezing them as hard as they could, trying to break them. It was sometimes hard to breathe, and it was just something that came over my body completely. It incapacitated me. It was painful. It would last anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour, 3 hours plus by the time that it led up to actually having to have it removed. Now, gallbladder disease is hereditary. It is also linked to poor diet and nutrition, which, if anyone knows me from back in the day, from about 7 to 13, once I hit full-fledged puberty, I had an issue with my weight and I did not eat very well at all. Honestly, up until a couple years ago, I was a very picky eater. I remember my mom, one time, I want to say we were at like a Sizzler visiting my grandpa. She had to go to Wendy's and get me chicken nuggets and french fries, and even brought the homemade ranch for the chicken nuggets and french fries because I was so picky. Growing up as a teenager, would eat Caesar salads, garden salads, hot lunch line, I would just get salad. Sometimes I would get a chicken sandwich or something like that if they had something like that. Range of foods that I would eat was not very wide, we'll just say that. So I kind of brought it on to myself in a way, and then it did run in my family as well. My mom had a cousin that had to have her gallbladder removed, gallbladder, whatever, however you prefer to have it said, but that didn't happen until she was in her 20s. So I was getting these gallbladder attacks. It was just me and my mom. I was living with my mom. My parents were divorced at this time. They would mainly come on at night. And then the first few times, I didn't really bring it to my mom's attention, at least not while it was happening. I told her the next day, like, yeah, I had these really weird pains last night. Went to the bathroom, it was fine. Some of the times I would start salivating, the little slits inside your cheeks that produce saliva, right? So they would just start like flowing and flowing and flowing and flowing. And I would get this feeling in my neck and like right here where it just felt like I had to vomit or something. So I'd sit over the toilet and just spit and just spit and just spit and just spit until it stopped coming. And then sometimes I would just even like hang my mouth open and just let it like drip and flow until that feeling passed. And then it happened at school one time. I was in the middle of class and I had to step out of class and go sit down and deal with it. It was really scary because it had never happened in the daytime before, if that makes sense. I had dealt with it for so long that it almost became somewhat of normalcy to have these attacks at night. So to have one at school made me really, really concerned. At this point, I had already been to the hospital probably at least a handful of times. Some of the longer attacks, I would start hyperventilating and panicking and making it worse for myself to the point where I had my mom take me to the hospital. Each time that she took me to the hospital, different doctors obviously worked different shifts, so there was different opinions, but they did EKGs, they did x-rays, they did everything that they could to see, based on my symptoms and what I was explaining to them, what was wrong. Each and every time that I went to the hospital up until this point, I was told that it was acid reflux. I was told to take a form of Prilosec, I think it's called, that's for indigestion and heartburn and acid reflux. Pardon me, as I sit here and burp. So I was taking that and it wasn't helping because I was still having these random attacks, right? It got to the point where I had an attack during the day. I was like, all right, this ain't normal. Had my mom come get me from school, I'm pretty sure, that day. And within the next week or two, I had another attack. It was a while before I had another one after having this one during the middle of the day. So it was weird, you know, after a few days, a week, I was like, okay, well maybe it stopped. Maybe this shit is working. And then I had the worst one of my entire relationship with this thing, right? My mom started getting to the point, obviously, I didn't understand so much when I was younger, but going to the hospital costs money. If you don't have Medi-Cal or Medicaid or zero copays on your insurance, it can get expensive to keep going to the hospital, especially because they charge you out the fucking ass. So my mom insisted to not take me to the hospital anymore. After the 4th, 5th time, they just kept saying the same thing. She was wasting her money. We weren't getting anywhere, right? This one had lasted for 3 hours at this point, before I even told my mom. I called her in my room. I was doubled over in pain. Just completely took over my entire body. Again, I'm hyperventilating, making it worse. And I tell her, this one is serious. You need to take me this time, Mom, please. I'm begging her, right? She's thinking I'm just overreacting because I used to do that a lot, still do sometimes. Finally convinced her to take me in. She takes me in. They do an ultrasound, I believe, or an x-ray, or both. And they drew blood. When they drew my blood, that was the very first thing that they did, the first test that came back or whatever. So they drew my blood and they saw that my white blood cell count was 300 times what it should have been normally. So they're like, okay, her body is trying to fight an infection of some sort, or something is not okay, or both. So they do the ultrasound or the x-ray, EKG, whatever it was that they did to figure this out, and they observed my gallbladder had swelled to about the size of my fist, which is about this size right now compared to this candle. It's, you know, so it was probably like, let's take a knuckle away, at least that size. Your gallbladder is normally this size, so for it to swell that large was an emergency situation. They immediately got me a room and started doing antibiotics to bring the inflammation down and hopefully get me into surgery by the next day. There was only 2 specialists in the area in town that did that type of procedure that I would need to have done. I was scared. It was a very scary feeling. It was a very scary experience. But on the other hand, it was great to finally have some relief and not feel so crazy. Even my mom got to the point where she started not believing me and thinking that I was over exaggerating, and I wasn't. This pain was real, and most women that have gone through this that you talk to will tell you that the pains from a gallbladder attack, the feelings that you get are worse than childbirth. 100% guaranteed. If you ask any female, because any female that I've talked to that had the same issues, that has also had children, says the same thing, and I can agree. Now that I have given birth, yeah, I can agree. It is 100 times worse than childbirth. I would have 10 babies. 10 babies before I dealt with that pain ever again. It was that bad. So it was nice to have a peace of mind that things were going to be taken care of finally. Hopefully I wasn't going to have to deal with this anymore. And we went through the surgery. They did the microscopic surgery. I'll probably insert some pictures here of the scars that I was left with. They put a camera in one hole, they put a knife in the other hole, and then they pull your gallbladder out through your belly button. So I have these 3 tiny incisions, not too bad to be left with after this painful experience. So the only real downfall after the fact for me and anyone in general is you need to limit the fatty and greasy foods that you eat. If you eat too much grease, too much fat, too much junk, there isn't that extra filter, which is what your gallbladder basically is an extra filter for all that bad shit that you put in your body. I don't have that anymore. So it filters through my intestines like everything else, and anything bad that goes in there could really damage it, could cause me to have more stomach pains and aches and issues like that. So you need to really watch what you eat. For me now, even a few years after the procedure, I was careless about what I was eating, didn't have the best diet, sometimes I still don't, but when you are recovering, it is super, super, super important because your body is healing. It no longer has that organ anymore, and it needs to learn how to function normally and properly without that anymore. I'm thankful for the doctor that finally found out what was going on. Really shitty that it took so long to figure it out, but I got it taken care of and I'm healthy now. So that was what it was like to get my gallbladder out at 16. If you like this video at all, throw it a thumbs up, maybe drop a comment, holla at your girl, follow my social medias, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.